Welcome back. Today I have the Talkin Giants guys, Justin Panic, Bobby Skinner, two awesome, guys in the Giants community. You can find them at Talkin Giants on Twitter, Talkin Giants on YouTube. They have their own personal Twitter accounts. I'm sure you guys know who these guys are, but they put a ton of work in. I think they've done a great job over the past year. They're getting themselves out there, growing very much, and you guys definitely deserve it. But what's up, guys? How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yes.
It is funny, you mentioned us growing. This time last year, it's like we just didn't really even do like we had just kind of just started putting stuff on YouTube, and it was like, oh, Mike's the YouTube guy. We knew of Entertainer only because his live streams are called Talking. Like that's the only reason I knew about him at the time. And then we kind of and now it's like, wow, it's like okay, now we're like it's like okay, now I understand why these guys do YouTube because it's huge.
Mike, one of my goals from today's little, I know this isn't a podcast and it's a little bit more serious on your channel, but one of my goals for today is to get you to sing Katy Perry again like you did in your record predictions video.
God.
One of my goals is to stop that from happening, so that works out well.
I might side with the guy on the bottom there. I mean, maybe another time. We've talked about doing karaoke in person one day, and I feel like we should make that happen, so we'll see.
Certainly.
We'll live stream that or something. But yeah. All right. So where do we want to start, fellas? I actually want to talk about the news that came out today. Joe Judge apparently said Kadarius Toney may have a quote unquote significant role in the offense week one. So we're kind of diving into week one already. Sorry about that. But it's kind of the big news today. Do you guys buy into it? Because I feel like Kadarius Toney is kind of like this figment of our imagination so far. We have not seen him, but he definitely, in my opinion, can make an impact if he plays for this team, especially in the slot. And Denver has a crazy secondary, so who are you going to attack? I do feel that Bryce Callahan versus Kadarius Toney may be the way to go. So if he plays week one, do you guys actually believe he's going to have a significant role?
Yeah, I do. I guess it might depend on what you're like. Do I expect him to get like the Sterling Shepard role of like he is a receiver? He plays, slot, sometimes works outside every rep. No, I don't expect that. But you know what? Why not expect more than like 40-50% of the reps? Like Darius Slayton hasn't done anything to stop a guy like Kadarius Toney getting on the field. Shep is obviously like not dominating, but he works his role really well. Kenny Galladay is obviously the alpha of the group. So why not, take some of the Slayton's reps away? Maybe do a little less tight end, stuff, especially if Ingram's probably going to miss. So I do. And, I was thinking about it today, man. Like, Toney can change a play. Like, he could take a slant or a curl or whatever and make that a game-winning play. And we just didn't have that last year. And then with the addition of Saquon, we know he can make a play out of nothing or take a routine run play and take it to the house. And so – yeah, I just want to see the ball in his hands because, like you said, it's like, man, you kind of forget what he is as a player because we have not seen him since we were doing the draft stuff.
Yeah, our biggest plays at some points were Golden Tate up the seam, at 31, 32 years old, which is all you need to know about this offense. And Kadarius can take it to the house in a blink of an eye, even Saquon, so it's great. But, Justin, over to you now.
Yeah, and I know there's some questions about route running, and obviously he barely participated at all during the summer in any kind of padded practices and stuff like that. And this week is the first week that he's really being ramped up. But Kadarius Toney, it's as simple as him and my expectations for him really this year just in general. Just get the ball in his hands. Get the ball in his hands with the slither amount of separation, and that's why we drafted him. So the reason why we drafted him, let him be that dude and let him be that guy. So that's my expectations for week one. It's my expectation even for week 18, unless we see really even something else. Until we see more, it's like, oh, the route running maybe is a little bit more crisper than we thought, that we can get him incorporated in some other ways too. But, we haven't had an athlete at the wide receiver spot since somebody that we won't name, that is just get the ball in this guy's hands and then let him go to work. So
I think you're talking about Golden Tate, but yeah, we want to talk
absolutely.
about it anyway, of course.
Yards after the catch king.
Every time I think about the offensive line and the Giants, I do just like revert to you guys. I don't know why. I know Bobby does the offensive line breakdowns very well, but the news came out yesterday that Nate Solder is slated to be the starting right tackle on the unofficial depth chart. I feel like a lot of Giants fans had hot takes about this. Now, I personally don't look at this as a nail in the coffin for Matt Peart's Giants career, but how did you guys take this news? Because some people did not like it. I feel like Justin may have been one of those people. Am I right?
Yes.
I didn't like it, not because it's like, oh, how did they not start Matt Peart? That's not my issue. My thing always was they were going to give the starting job, put it on a platter for Matt Peart to win that starting job. and he wasn't good enough to beat out Nate Solder. And my expectations for Solder are so low, and it's not simply just off of 2019. It is previous year. I mean, I put this stat out yesterday in the Talkin Giants account, and I put it on that account so I didn't have to deal with the backlash. Is the 2017 Nate Solder gave up more pressures than Andrew Thomas did last year. Like he had 5 more, and that was with Tom Brady as his QB. Gave up 4 sacks. He gave up more hits too. And that's where Tom Brady can make a difference. Is you could give all those pressures and not get those sacks, and that's it. Not the difference between him and Jones, but a difference. So it's just frustrating because I kind of know we're going to have bad right tackle play, but we're going to have bad right tackle play with someone there's no future with in Nate Solder. And I said and I tweeted out the Giants have kind of given up on Matt Parrott as a starter. That might be a little dramatic because I think at some point of this season he will come in and play, but I don't have high expectations for when he comes in and plays because he wasn't able to beat out Nate Solder. So it just sucks that Nate Solder's contract, but him opting out, and we talked about it early in the offseason. Nate Solder opting out honestly screwed the Giants because he wasn't supposed to be here this year. He was supposed to start at right tackle. This was supposed to happen last year. Nate Solder starts at right tackle. Matt Parrott develops. Cam Fleming is that swing tackle. And that's Cam Fleming is a swing tackle. That's fine. But he wasn't supposed to be the starter. So his money rolled over. So we are kind of screwed at that right tackle spot. And that's why it's worried me more than Shane Lemieux or anybody else on the offensive line has. So, I'm worried about that right tackle spot because it can be the difference of us not making the playoffs and making the playoffs. Where I see if Shane Lemieux is the same exact player last year, I don't see that being the difference of us making it and not making it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially the first 2 weeks, based on who we're playing, the pass rushers we have to face in Denver and Washington. But Justin, what's your hot take about it?
Yeah, I just it's frustrating because we were spoon-fed the whole we're fine at tackle, specifically, them naming Andrew Thomas and Matt Parrott. Gettleman did, and Gettleman acknowledged heading into last offseason, the offseason where we drafted Andrew Thomas, he acknowledged and he flat out said tackle is a need. So that basically was a matter of not what we were going to do it for, it was which tackle we were going to take it for, So that was pretty clear. And this year there was not that consensus where we didn't know exactly where we were going to go. So I am glad that the Giants kind of traded back and got that extra first-round pick. I will never be upset where we did get that extra first-round pick and that extra draft capital. We have 10 draft picks, and 5 of them are in the first 3-4 rounds next year. But the one time where the Giants actually did trade back, it could wind up screwing them. Out of all the years that a lot of fans have wanted the Giants to trade back, whether it be 2018, 2019, the one year that they do it, it may be the year that actually screws them because Slater and not getting that right tackle, like Bobby said, that may be the difference between having a playoff-worthy season and then having, year 3 and year 4 of Saquon Barkley also being a waste. So it's unfortunate. I'm rooting for Matt Parrott to kind of get it together because we were spoon-fed that his development was going to be a thing. Hopefully the start of the season with Nate Solder isn't how we end it.
Yeah, Parrott has to be good when he comes in. If he's not or at least average, because then then you can go into next year with bringing in a Cam Fleming type in to compete. But if he's not good this season, and I'm not talking about just flashes, consistently good for stretches of games, you cannot go into next year with Matt Parrott as your starter. Even if you make the playoffs, you just can't continue to do that with the offensive line. And that's why, during the draft, I wanted not only Rashawn Slater, but I wanted Elijah Vera Tucker before I wanted Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. And like Justin, I'm okay with the trade back. I'm not mad at that. But I will still stand firm that offensive line should have been a big it should have been addressed this season. And I was fine with I know I'm getting long-winded. I was never really mad at the depth until Zach Fulton retired. I was I'm actually fine with what we have at depth. The issue is that the depth is too close to what the starters is, but they're not even real competition. I guess Solder ended up being that with Parrott. So people were why don't they draft someone on day 3 in the O-line? That doesn't bother me. You go best player available in those rounds. Need matters in the first couple of rounds. And that's why I wanted them to address offensive line in the first round. I didn't really with their second round pick. There really wasn't anybody I would have banged on the table to get, in the third round. as much as I would have liked him to take maybe like a Ben Cleveland over Aaron Robinson, I also don't think Ben Cleveland's fixing our needs this year either.
That's true. Yeah. I was just absolutely like floored, astonished, whatever word you want to use, that the Giants did not take a single offensive lineman. And I know that you can't expect a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick to change your offensive line. But as you said, Bobby, like you want to take you want to take into account some of the positions you need the first few rounds. And it's not like there were nobodies available. Rashawn Slater was, supposed to be, for most people, a top 10 pick, and Elijah Vera Tucker was by far the best guard in this class. And like, it wasn't like the Giants were going to reach for an offensive lineman just because he has OL next to his name. Like, they were going to take a good player. But the trade back, I feel like we have to wait and see. Of course, it depends what they do with
I'm not
pick.
mad at how the draft went.
No,
it just sucks that
I don't think anyone should be.
In free agency, they're like it should have been addressed at some point because, and even though Andrew Thomas played bad in that preseason game, I'm still not really worried about him. I'm less confident, but I'm not worried.
Yeah,
Gates, I'm not worried about. And even Hernandez, like, is Hernandez going to be perfect and live up to pick 34 this year? Probably not. But I'm honestly not worried about him. It all off season, right tackle has been that worry for me because it's like I'm not confident that Matt Parrott's going to get better. He can. He's got all the athletic ability and the strength to do it, but having that and putting it together are two different things.
Yeah, and like, what do you? Because I'm sure you go back and watch the film and all that. What do you think like was Matt Parrott's biggest problem? I think we talked about it last year, but just to refresh my memory and all that.
Opens his hips too quickly, which just kind of gives like a free pass to the QB at times. He'll never get beat inside, and I think that's how Andrew Thomas kind of overcorrected in those preseason games. And that paired with he just never punt. He's kind of like the anti-Andrew Thomas, where Andrew Thomas sometimes can lean and mistime his punch and overextend himself and would leave the inside open, where Matt Parrott is the exact opposite, where it's like he's going to force you on the outside every time. He's never really going to get his hands on you. And the frustrating thing is that when you watch Matt Parrott and he does get his hands on guys, he controls them better than anybody on the offensive line. Like, he's got that lateral mobility. So it's just he's got stuff to put together, and it's frustrating because he has all the potential. It just sucks. I'm not even mad that Matt Parrott's not ready in year 2. It's the fact that he's not starting over Nate Solder. Like, it matters who it's against, So like, I'm not like, oh my God, how did they draft this guy and he's not ready year 2? But he was always going to be a project. But he wasn't treated like a project this offseason. He was treated like, you are the starter. You have earned this job. Okay, like what did he do last year to be getting the first team reps all throughout camp over Nate Solder? Nate Solder had to take that job away from him.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing. I mean, when you're like, GM and I think even head coach are talking up like the offensive line unit you have right now, and then like a week before the game, you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna put Nate Solder at right tackle. It's like, well, how did that happen? So I think just the fact that it is Nate Solder behind him is what's making it worse. But I wanted to also ask you guys about the offensive line depth. Of course, they added a few guys here, Billy Price via the trade, and Ben Bredesen, and I think Matt Skura is the guy's name. How do you guys feel about them? Like, is there a particular pecking order of like who you have the most confidence in that group? Because I have no idea personally. Of course, Price was the high draft pick, and Bredesen was taken last year. Skura, I guess, a couple years ago had a nice year. But how do you guys feel about those group of 3 guys?
I actually like the depth now. Like, I'm a fan of the depth now. I would start, even though Shane Lemieux wasn't listed on the injury report, I think Bredesen should get the chance to like, if Shane Lemieux doesn't look good to start the season, I think Bredesen should unseat him. Price, I'm not as confident. He has like great ability, like he can move dudes in the run game. But also he has Nick Gates ahead of him, who's solidified there. No, obviously you could slide Gates over to guard and put Price in center. And like Skura, for a practice squad offensive lineman, like he's pretty decent. So I'm actually fine with what the depth is right now. Like I'm happy with I was even happy, like when camp started, I was, I had the talking points. Like, our backups have like 250 starts in the NFL. Like Jonathan Harrison, Kenny Wiggins had a little bit. And like I expected a lot more out of Zach Fulton. Like, when Kenny Wiggins was playing over Zach Fulton, I was shocked. I was like, this can't be right. And they continued to do it. It's like, oh my gosh, like, good thing you retired Zach Fulton, because if you couldn't beat out Kenny Wiggins, you must have been really, like, came in really bad. Like, you probably deserved to retire if you couldn't beat out Kenny Wiggins. But I do feel good about the depth. Bredesen is the one I would like to see play over all the other ones, though.
I agree. I think I talked to Chris yesterday. He said the same thing. And my stupid ass thought that the starting right guard this year was going to be Zach Fulton. And I obviously got that one wrong. But Justin, how do you feel about those guys at depth and who we got recently?
Yeah, and really, I feel much better about this group as a run blocking group than a pass blocking group too. I think all of these guys kind of have that in common. I think this is even Nate Solder at right tackle in general. I think Bredesen definitely is a better pass blocking guard than Shane Lemieux. So it depends on what you kind of value. Do you want to have better running lanes for Saquon Barkley? Then maybe you want to go with Lemieux because Lemieux may be a better run blocker, but Bredesen's not a bad run blocker in that regard either. But if you want a better pass blocking unit, because that's what the Giants kind of have struggled with the last couple of years, then maybe you want to start Bredesen from day one. And there definitely will probably be a rotation anyway. I can see Judge doing that. And how you feel about that? Offensive linemen getting cohesion or lack of cohesion. So I think they are a better run blocking unit. I'm actually very confident in talking about this offensive line. I'm actually pretty confident in their ability to be a run blocking unit to try and have Saquon Barkley being a little bit more efficient, but also bringing that explosivity that this offense desperately needs. We talked about Kadarius Toney being a guy that you just want to get the ball in his hands and just see what happens. That's Saquon Barkley too. If there's one thing that, he does extremely well, and there's one thing that he's elite at in terms of that running back position, it's bringing that explosivity to this offense, and that is what it desperately needs. It desperately is craving for.
Need some explosion on the offense. Absolutely. So about the weapons now, and we're talking about pass blocking. We'll get to Daniel Jones, of course, right after this. But the weapons, I talked to the entertainer about this yesterday. Are you guys concerned about the amount of injuries that we've seen with the weapons so far, whether it's, Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay and Kyle Rudolph's foot and Sterling Shepard's history, and then Darius Slayton had the small injuries last year that kind of slowed him down. How do you guys feel confidence-wise? We can't predict health, I get that, but how do you guys feel confidence-wise about the whole weapon group and even Saquon Barkley too?
Yeah, you worry a little bit, but until guys miss games, it's just like for me, it's kind of like it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And it's funny, if there was one starter on the entire offense, you're who would you be okay with missing a game due to injury? It would be Evan Ingram, and it's not simply just because the fan base hates him, but it's you're replacing him with Rudolph and Caden Smith as a 2, and that might even be better options. There's just no other starter where it's where the backup makes you feel a lot better, or less panic. So I'm not worried about it. And since we're talking the weapon stuff, I actually do have expectations for the offense, even with a bad they were a bad offensive line last year. They were a bad offensive line in 2019. But these weapons do matter. Saquon can change a game with a bad offensive line. Kadarius Toney can change a game with the bad offensive line. These weapons, you don't need to be, you don't need to have the best offensive line in the league to be effective. And now, will it stop them from ever being a top 10 offense with this O-line? Yes. And obviously, people know I'm not the biggest fan of Garrett. But I do think being in year 2 helps a little bit for Jones. It's not – you shouldn't make a decision based on cohesiveness, but it does help. So I expect this offense to be a good amount better than what they were last year, which was second worst in the NFL.
It has to be.
It has to be. It has to be a good amount better, and we expect the defense to be better as well too. So, I know it's been a little it seemed like panic the last week or so, but I still do have expectations for the Giants to win games this year. From making the playoffs is still my realistic expectation for the Giants. Now, if they miss it, will I be surprised? No. I want people fired, but I won't be surprised. But at the same time, my expectation still is for this Giants team to win. And I don't think that's even being a fan. It's year 4. It's QB year 3. You added these weapons. The defense is really good. Like I said, I don't expect them to be winning Super Bowls, but making the playoffs in a bad division shouldn't be outlandish for the Giants this year.
I absolutely agree with that. I don't see any reason why not. As you said, year 4, you have Daniel Jones. You spend all the money in the offseason. You play in a bad division, 3 wild card spots. I'm done with the excuses. I have to see it. But Justin, how do you feel about the weapons that the Giants have right now?
Yeah, in terms of the scoring offense, I'm aiming for number 20 to 16 in terms of being in that average ranking. That's what I'm aiming for. And
I would feel happy with that. Be kind of getting back to what they were in 2019.
Yeah, except just if they don't turn over the ball as much as they did in 2019, but they put up points at the same rate, I mean, we're talking about then, I think, a slightly above average offense, but neither here nor there. Let's go through some of the situations that we got going on in offense right now. We already talked about Evan Ingram. Maybe going to miss some time, probably not going to play Sunday. Kyle Rudolph, who has barely been out there, but he's been out there for a solid 2 weeks now. So we'll lump him in, maybe just didn't show up for a preseason game. So that's Kyle Rudolph. Kadarius Toney hasn't played a second. Kenny Galladay hasn't played. Saquon Barkley still ramping up. Shane Lemieux, Ben Bredesen, we'll just lump them in as one starter. So that's like 6 out of a possible 11 guys that could be out on a football field. And odds are I'm probably forgetting somebody. 6 out of 11 guys on a football field for this Giants offense who just have not seen the field this training camp / haven't been out there for very long / are going through something injury-wise right now. So you could spin this in a couple ways, Michael. Sorry, I just called you Michael. That was weird.
Yeah, that was
what the
weird.
hell is wrong with you?
So you could spin this in a couple different ways. 6 out of the 11 guys haven't been out there for Giants. Sure, that could be a bad thing. That could also be a great thing because fans love to talk about not putting anything on tape and not showing your hand. And actually, I do think that is an advantage for the Giants. Nobody has seen how Kenny Galladay is going to be used. You know, obviously he's going to be a contested catch king, but when and what situations and what formations, what's the personnel? It'd be really cool to see 12 personnel under the center, maybe a rushing formation, but then you throw it deep to Kenny Galladay and you don't have the defensive personnel maybe to play deep, right? And Giants, they faced single high safety, cover one a ton last year. So doing that. Saquon Barkley, how is he going to be used? He was used on an angle route a little bit in New England there. So run that once or twice. And if there's nobody over the middle of the field again, because that was a common theme last year, nobody being over the middle of the field because defenses don't respect the Giants' ability to throw the ball deep. So if there's nobody over the middle of the field, Saquon Barkley has a linebacker to beat, catches the ball, then boom, that's open field. Think back to that 2019 Detroit game where he tripped in the middle of the field. So not seeing all these guys, yes, it's bad. During the summer, you want your guys to get cohesion, but it also could be, and this is really optimistically looking at it, could also be an advantage to where we just don't know how these guys are going to be used. And it's going to be fun to see them out there all at once.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way you think. It's an optimistic view about it. And so with the quarterback, I mean, I'll give my little speech on Daniel Jones here, as I always say. There's fans that think he can be a top 10 quarterback. There's fans that think he's average and want to see more. And there's people that think he just flat out sucks. And I've always said with Daniel Jones, he's not a guy that can carry your entire team if you don't have the right team around him. And I fear that with this Giants 2021 roster, they did not give him a good enough offensive line. We'll see about that. The weapons have to stay healthy. We'll see about that. And as we know, his play caller was horrendous last season. Now, they could make some changes there, of course. The offensive line can improve and the weapons could stay healthy. But if things start going bad around Daniel Jones, I always fear that, it's just not going to go well. So can you guys kind of talk me off the ledge and, just give me your honest thoughts about Daniel Jones and why he may exceed expectations this year?
I would go back to 2019 and the last 2 games of last year. And I know you watched all 22, Mike. Freddie Kitchens might have kicked Jason Garrett in the ass a little bit. Because, I would always chart, the downfield concepts in every game. And Freddie Kitchens came in, and I wasn't expecting this. I was like, Jason Garrett didn't die. He has COVID. It's the same playbook, And he called the most aggressive game of the year, and I have numbers behind that, not just my opinion, with Colt McCoy versus the Cleveland Browns. Mm-hmm. He did. And then you saw them open it up a little more versus the Ravens and the Cowboys. And even that Ravens game, I wasn't mad at Jason Garrett in that Ravens game. Daniel Jones was actually figuring out their defense a little bit. Think about the way that game went. The defense, they only had 3 possessions in the first half. The first drive, they have a 3rd and 6. They have 2 false starts, go to 3rd and 16. I'm not going to be mad at Jason Garrett for not converting 3rd and 16. The second drive of the game, Austin Mack drops the ball on 3rd down. Mm-hmm. Drive over. The last one, they kicked the field goal, but they got down to the end zone. Jason Garrett calls a man-beater play. No one could beat their man coverage. That's on the personnel.
Didn't Mack drop a ball there too, or am I wrong?
Mack dropped the short one. The man-beater play was to Mack in the end zone.
Yeah, I remember.
It was tight coverage, so yeah. I don't count that one as a drop, even though I think it might have hit his hands. So those last 2 games give you a little hope that, it's not going to be something insane. It's not going to be the Kansas City Chiefs or the Rams, but I do expect it to be opened up a little bit and then say, well, what about the turnovers that Jones had his rookie year? Well, I've always wanted to trust him to slow those down on his own. And interception-wise, he has, Like last year, he had 10. Some of them were off Ingram's hand, not all of them. But like his interception number wasn't bad last year. It's just that they were not getting yards and touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So if you can try and mix some of that aggressiveness with him just maturing as a QB and knowing when to take chances, that's why the offensive line was really bad in 2019, and like we were excited about him. So like you said, like I'm not expecting the world out of DJ this year, but I do expect a very clear, are we moving forward with him or not? Where this last 2 years it's been muddied.
Yeah, you can survive some turnovers with your quarterback as long as you're getting explosive plays in return. And the problem was Daniel Jones in last year's offense had no margin for error. So every time there was a fumble, interception, and you add on the fact that we're just doing 5 or 6 yards per completion, it's like, well, what do we do now? So you're putting the defense in a tough spot. But Justin, that was good, Bobby. So go ahead. You want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, like Orlovsky, who he goes through all the games. Like he said exactly what you said. He's like, in the Giants' offense, everything has to go perfect. Mm-hmm. And I always look at that Eagles game when people are like, Jason Garrett called a good game. It's like, did he? Or was that just like the best executed game of the year? And they only scored 27 points. Like I don't view that as like good game call, Jason Garrett. I was like, no, the run game worked well that game, and Jones basically converted on every single downfield attempt, and they had the running designs. I will give Jason Garrett credit for. They did change. Like that's one thing I'll give Garrett credit for. They did change their run scheme in the middle of the year, and you could say, well, it was Joe Judge, but guess what? Jason Garrett wasn't left in the dark when they changed it. So I will give Garrett that they did change the way they ran the ball midseason.
Yeah, I remember you ranting about how they ran the ball the first few weeks. That was funny. But anyway,
it was like a high school offense, and then they totally changed it. And I remember giving credit during streams. I'm like, I'll give Garrett credit this. Like they have changed the running game.
So that was a good job by you, kind of getting me off the ledge there, Justin. Can you one up that right?
Push him back towards the ledge, Justin.
No, well, actually, even just before we get to, I don't even know if I am going to touch on Garrett. I may touch on Garrett, but. Yeah. Week 6 through 12. So even before Jason Garrett maybe kind of looked at himself in the mirror after COVID and after Freddie Kitchens kind of coming in, even before he looked at himself in the mirror, week 6 through 12, this Giants offense and Daniel Jones, they were exactly middle of the pack in EPA. And I love looking at expected points added EPA. So yes, the Giants offense wasn't scoring a ton of points in that gap of week 6 to 12. They were never really scoring a lot of points, but EPA looks at overall efficiency and how well are certain players performing, most notably the quarterback. The quarterbacks have always the largest EPAs because their performances are the ones that decide, are you putting points on the board or are you not putting points on the board? So there was that stretch, week 6 to 12, where the Giants offense was perfectly average. And lo and behold, I think it was post-bye week that's when Daniel Jones got hurt. And that's when the efficiency started to dip down. And then the last 2 games of the season, or the last game of the season, is when they really, were clicking on all cylinders. Helps when you play a bad Dallas defense. And then Daniel Jones started to get a little bit healthy again. So, but I look at that stretch pre-Daniel Jones injury, which that's a big note of this year. Daniel Jones has got to stay healthy because we need to have 100% of Daniel Jones because, yes, 75% of Daniel Jones may be better than Mike Glennon, but 75% of Daniel Jones is not good enough to win the division or make the playoffs. So, he's not that good. 80% of Aaron Rodgers is still better than all quarterbacks in the National Football League, right? So, neither here nor there. There was a stretch of time during last year where the Giants offense, even without Jason Garrett really having that look in the mirror moment, where they were average. I'm not talking above average. I'm not talking great. I'm not talking good.
Right in the middle.
They were average, and they were doing enough to go on a little bit of a win streak and keep themselves in games and stuff like that. So that's the pitch. Week 6 through 12, they were average. Daniel Jones is healthy, upgraded weapons, hopefully an improved offensive line with not a disaster at right tackle. That's the pitch for you.
That's not bad, honestly. All right, so both of you guys kind of gave me different viewpoints, and they're positive. So, okay, that's a good takeaway. So we'll move on from the offense now. Of course, the offense has to be good. I've always said this about the Giants this entire offseason. We just need to be average offensively. That's all we need. I'm not asking to be top 10. Just be average, and we should be fine because the defense, which we'll get onto now, should be pretty good and possibly even better. So, of course, the big offseason addition was adding Adoree Jackson. And he did have the ankle injury scare, but he looked very good in training camp, apparently. And I'm a believer, and I'm sure you guys are. You guys are kind of up to date with the analytics and all that crap. But if you have a 2 really good corners on the outside, it makes your entire defense so much better, especially in this passing league. And I know that there's risk involved with the Adoree Jackson injury, but I think he brings so much to this defense. And, you can talk about some of the other offseason additions we had, but how do you guys think that we improved this defense based on this 2021 offseason?
I'll let Justin go first on this one because I know he wants
Yeah.
to talk about it.
And what would you rather add in free agency in terms of talking about maybe the riskiness of a Kenny Galladay and a Adoree Jackson? Who would you rather add in free agency and overpay? Golden Tate and Nate Solder, or overpay for Adoree Jackson and Kenny Galladay? So would you rather overpay for those guys? I would certainly rather overpay for those guys with talent, because let's face it, like the Allen Robinsons of the world, those guys aren't just going to hit the open market. They're going to stay with their teams because he plays 16 games every single year. But neither here nor there. I think Adoree Jackson is going to bring more value to the Giants team and to a Giants defense versus Kenny Galladay with the Giants offense. And I say that because we just spent almost half an hour talking about how the Giants offense, we're looking for them to be average. We're not looking for this Giants defense to be average. We're looking for this Giants defense to be a top 5 unit. And I always like to just say, hey, and maybe points allowed. That's what I always say. Top 5. We always, well, what do you mean top 5? Yards, points? I like to go and consider points. So Adoree Jackson can help this Giants defense be top 5, because part of their problem was last year is that their average time of possession per drive was extremely high. It was like top 10 in the National Football League. But then you looked at their red zone efficiency. The Giants defense clamped down. Once teams kind of crossed that 50-yard line, once teams especially got into the red zone, they clamped down and they prevented 7 points, and they only allowed 3, or they forced a punt, let's say at the 50, 40-yard line, and they really clamped that at midfield. So that was their strength last year. Patrick Graham playing cover 3 across the board. Giants were like a top 5, top 3 team in the National Football League of running cover 3. And what I think Patrick Graham is going to look to do this year, that's why this stinks that Aaron Robinson's hurt, but what they're going to do this year, especially when you have 2 arguably number 1 starting cornerbacks, James Bradbury is definitely a number 1 corner, and then Adoree Jackson probably on some teams, which you look around the NFL, there's a lot of secondary problems in the NFL right now. So I guarantee Adoree Jackson probably could start on some teams number 1. What they're going to do, it's going to allow them to play more man coverage on the back end so you can blitz on the front end. And that's not necessarily something that the Giants had last year with Isaac Adom at number 2. You had to play a lot of cover 3, and you had to help Isaac Adom. You had to help a rookie Darnay Holmes, and you can let James Bradbury go on the island. But hopefully this year we can have 2 guys on an island, play more man coverage, blitz on that front end, get to the quarterback a little bit quicker than we did last year too. I'm not a hater of coverage sacks. I love coverage sacks. It's part of the game.
Coverage sack is the worst term in the world. Almost every sack is a coverage sack. I'm so tired of the term coverage sack.
Unless you're
look at every sack in the game, and like 80% of them are because of good coverage. Like very rarely is someone just dominating and getting to the QB in 2 seconds.
Yeah. So that's my outlook on the Giants defense. You could be more aggressive this year, get to the quarterback more, and also have better coverage when the coverage last year and the secondary last year was pretty darn good too.
Mm-hmm. That's well said. No, it definitely hypes me up as well. Bobby, can you add on to that? Make us even more excited.
No. Here's what I'll say, because I don't want to repeat everything Justin said. How do you feel about our inside linebacker room? Because I kind of love it. Blake Martinez is that one, obviously. And I love the way Tay Crowder, Reggie Ragland, and Carter Coughlin are all completely different players.
They complement, very nice.
Like they're like Carter Coughlin's got like that pass rush ability. Might be a little too aggressive. Reggie Ragland's never going to be. He's never going to overplay something. He knows how to like take on blocks better. He's going to play the right gap. And then Crowder's kind of like that rangy guy who can shoot gaps. And he's more of a do-it-all guy, but not great, obviously. I think all 3 of those guys should play every game. I think there should be more of a rotation at inside linebacker too than there should be at edge. So I won't repeat. I agree with everything Justin said. I just want to add on that. I'm so excited to see the way Graham uses those 3 guys next to Blake Martinez.
Yeah, no, I haven't really thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. And you did mention edge for a second. I want to get to that. Out of the group of who we have, Lorenzo Carter, O'Shane Zimenez, and the rookie Azeez Ojulari, and even Cam Brown, if you want to put him in there, who do you expect to play majority? I'm not going to say who's going to start, because sometimes it doesn't matter. Who's going to play the majority of outside linebacker snaps for this team, at least to start the season, in your guys' opinion? Because it could be any of combination possible, because I have no idea.
I'm pretty confident it's going to be Lorenzo, they have O'Shane listed as the starter or Aziz. I do again, it will be a rotation, so I do expect at some point this year Aziz will be playing over O'Shane, and hell, maybe even Roche might play over O'Shane because Roche is more versatile. But I'm pretty confident that it will be, if everyone's healthy, Lorenzo.
Justin?
Yeah, I'd certainly agree. The fact that Lorenzo Carter was able to drop back into coverage like 10 to 12 snaps last year, which you look at that, it's like, that's maybe not a lot. Lorenzo Carter, he did play like at times 80 to 90% of the defensive snaps, which in the past few years, I know this was Graham's first year last year, but the past few years, when's the last time the Giants had a pass rusher besides Olivier Vernon and Jason Pierre-Paul in 2016, where Spagnuolo ran them into the ground, where they were playing like 95% of the snaps every single game. But, Carter was doing that. He was playing 80 to 90% of the snaps in 2020 to start, and that was the first time in his career that he was really able to get his sea legs under him. And about 10 to 12 snaps out of the 60, 70 snaps that are in a game are dropping back into coverage. So when you look at that, that's a lot. That's a decent amount of snaps here dropping back into coverage. And O'Shane can't really do that. We expect Aziz to do that, but they love Lorenzo's versatility. And even coming off the Achilles injury, I am expecting Lorenzo maybe not to get 80, 90%, because if they do want to slow him back from the Achilles, then guess what? Then get 70 to 75%, which that is still plenty more snap share reps than a lot of the other pass rushers that we've had the last few years, where we actually feel confident about Lorenzo Carter being out there. We're not going to get double-digit sacks, but we feel confident in his versatility and especially his strength in the run game.
All right, so that was the free space answer. We know that they absolutely love Lorenzo Carter. Who's the second guy do you guys think plays the most snaps? Because I lean Ojulari by the time the year's over.
Be.
Right? I think it is. Yeah.
He's like the perfect scheme fit.
Yes.
He was drafted in the second round, which is kind of where I was a little lower on Aziz. Like when people were saying Aziz in the first round, I was like, please, Giants, don't draft him in the first round. But like 50, I was thrilled. I was like, okay, this is where I would be happy about an Aziz pick. So it's just got to be Aziz. Like he should be a better pass rusher than O'Shane eventually, maybe not right away. And he plays the run better. He drops in the coverage. So it's got to be Aziz. Like they like this guy, and I think who's going to stop him? I like O'Shane more than most people, but is O'Shane going to stop their second round pick from playing this year? I doubt it.
Yeah, that's my argument as well. It's like they don't have someone that's going to just take Ojulari off the field. I feel like, the talent always rises to the top, and I feel like he'll get there eventually. But Justin, who's playing the second most outside linebacker snaps? Do you also agree on Ojulari?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough.
Absolutely.
So our defensive line, and we'll touch on the safeties a little bit too. Like the defensive line is looking pretty solid, of course. Dexter Lawrence could maybe take another step forward. Leonard Williams, while we should acknowledge he might not have 11.5 sacks again, he's still going to have a really good year, probably just a really good fit for this defense, as we know. But I like Danny Shelton. I don't know how you guys feel about him. I feel like at that nose tackle position, he's going to be like a really good run stopper for this team. He's not going to get to the quarterback many times, obviously, but I feel like he plays a really important role to stop the run here. And I've said this before, like if the Giants front three basically in this 3-4, they're all so good at stopping the run and like just penetrating gaps that like you're not going to have your linebackers having to play up at the line of scrimmage every time. Like it makes the linebackers' jobs easier. So like, let them play the pass more and things like that. But how do you guys feel about the defensive line group?
I mean, Shelton is I think was like one of the more underrated, maybe the most underrated, because we're so excited about Kenny Galladay and Adoree Jackson, and even John Ross and Kyle Rudolph. It's like Danny Shelton, like is actually like super important and has played well. Like he's never like now he's not as like diverse as Dalvin, where Dalvin can finish plays a ton better. But as far as just playing the nose tackle, like Danny Shelton does a pretty damn good job for it, and with that contract. That was the most underrated signing of the free agency was Danny Shelton. I do think they'll
savvy move by Gettleman.
Yeah. So like if you told me it's like, okay, we can move on from Dalvin, but add Adoree Jackson and Danny Shelton, like I don't even think twice about that. So but I do think it's going to be more of a split with him and Austin Johnson, where Dalvin was going to get like 40% more reps. Like Dalvin got 60%, Austin Johnson got 21%. I just made a video last night, so I don't usually know the exact number that Johnson played per game. So I think it'd probably be closer to like 40-40. Like I do think they'll split them pretty evenly, but Danny Shelton was a really good pickup.
I agree. No, Bob, you got to remember these numbers, though. This is your job. I mean, Justin over here
I
probably
did
is
a
going to
practice
remember.
squad video last night where I had to like find a talking point about Willie Henry. And I was like, you know what? His way onto the team could be an injury. And then the Giants played their 5th defensive tackle 21% of the reps last year. So that's how I knew it off rip.
There you go.
Now I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. So,
So Xavier McKinney, breakout season or no? Is he going to be an impactful player or like breakout, like be a top 20 safety type guy in the NFL?
he is my biggest I don't know for this season. Like we did our PPP series. Xavier McKinney was like, I don't know what he's going to be. Like he could be clearly behind Peppers and Ryan and still be like you view him positively, or he could be a lot better in man coverage than Jabril Peppers is. You know, and I think he could play like that free safety role if they want to put Logan Ryan, bump him down in the corner for a series or something. So he is definitely my biggest I don't know what to expect out of Xavier this year.
That's a good way to put it, honestly. I did have a bold prediction saying that I think he's going to be the best safety on the roster, but I don't have a way of convincing people otherwise. We'll have to see how it plays out. I just think he's very talented. I like that pick a lot. Justin, top 20 safety or impactful player?
I think impactful player, and it's because if you're going to be playing free safety a large majority of the time, you're not on the TV screen. You know, you can maybe get the PFF grades and the numbers and stuff like that. You know, those people look at that every single snap. But if you're not on the TV screen, like Jabril Peppers is on the TV screen every snap because he's a strong safety. He's in the box a lot of the time, and, you know, his nose is involved in a lot of different areas, which is why I think a lot of people, they like the strong safeties. You know, they like to say that those players are good, where, you know, like Julian Love was 3rd or 4th on the team in tackles last year, but you would have never known that. Like,
I didn't know that. That's news to me, honestly.
You know, so I think the Giants plan for Xavier McKinney, at least while Jabril Peppers is still on the roster, it is to primarily be a free safety. And if Patrick Graham wants to blitz more and not play cover 3, and then the alternative is to maybe play cover 1 with the single high safety, which we saw it a decent amount during the preseason, which I don't like to make evaluations based off the scheme during the preseason. I don't think it's smart to do that, but it was just food for thought where they were playing a lot of man coverage and it was single high safety. So if that's something that he wants to do, because he did it in Miami in 2019, single high safety with Adrian Colbert a little bit too. Remember him?
That's your boy.
Yeah. That is my boy. I love Adrian Colbert. If that's something that they want to do, I think Xavier McKinney would be that free safety, even though I didn't necessarily view that as like his best trait. Coming out of college, I thought his best trait was kind of moving forward in the intermediate game and playing man coverage in the intermediate game instead of moving backwards as a free safety. So we'll see exactly how Patrick Graham plans to use him. If they use more 2 high safety, I will not be shocked. And frankly, I will be happy, because I get nervous with single high safeties because you have to be a really good like single high safety to patrol all that center field. And you can see what happened in 2019 when Antoine Bethea was expected to do that, and explosive play after explosive play was allowed. So I'd be happy with the 2 high safety approach. But if you are playing free safety and you're playing deep, you're not on the TV screen a lot. So he could be impactful, but I don't necessarily think he may take that jump to, you know, top 20, top 10 safety.
Yeah, I mean, that's very high expectations anyway. But yeah, when you watch McKinney, he kind of looks small on the TV screen, if that makes sense. Like, you don't expect him to be such a good player in the box, but he also can do that. All right, so Giants win total this year is 7. And I said this to Chris yesterday. Even someone that's a pessimistic bastard like myself, I think 7's too low. I had the Giants at 8 wins when I gave my honest, like, you know, game by game schedule prediction, but I think 8 to 10 wins is very possible for this team. So 1, why are they at 7 wins according to Vegas? And 2, why are the Giants going to be over 7 in your opinions? Because I feel like you guys are going to have the over as well.
I don't think people realize how much Garrett kind of held stuff back last year. So I think people just look at and I wouldn't either if I wasn't a Giants fan. So I think people just look at, okay, let's look at the offense last year. Like, do adding these 3 pieces make them that much better? Or, you know, like the outside doesn't believe in Daniel Jones. And honestly, I don't blame them. So what was your exact question again? I just started going off on a rant.
Well, now I'm forgetting. Justin, what did I ask?
You asked, is 7 wins like an appropriate win total? Why should it be more? Why do outside people think that?
Mm-hmm.
I think the Giants are going to go 4-2 in the division. That's a sweep over the Eagles, and then you split with Washington and Dallas. That's 4-2. That leaves you 11 more games. Go 6-5 in those games. Like it's not the schedule's not as tough. Like I expect to beat Denver. Like I'm sorry. Like I'm not afraid of Denver. Like and I'm giving away some of our pregame notes that I have prepared. Is like Von Miller didn't play last year. Bradley Chubb with an ankle injury had like 7.5 sacks last year with 10 tackles for loss. Good player, but like I'm not. He doesn't strike. This isn't T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree week 1. Like I'm just more worried about our right tackle no matter who we are playing. And yeah, they added some secondary and like stuff, but like they're all, like this. Teddy Bridgewater had the most touchdown of his career last year. You know what he had? 15. I'm sorry. I'm not afraid of that offense. And if we didn't because of the corners we have, like Judy is really the only one that worries me. Like I'm not worried about Sutton versus Bradbury, or Tim Patrick or Hamler. And we're going to stop the run versus those guys. And I like Javonte Williams a lot, but he's like, we're going to play sound gap football. And I think he's going to be contained and Melvin Gordon. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just not scared of Denver. Like if we lose to them, I don't panic because I'm just not a panic guy. But like, I'm going to feel really bad because we should beat that team. And there's a lot of teams on our schedule this year that we should beat like that.
I'm going to say I am kind of scared of Denver. You may not like me for that, but I do feel they have more continuity than us right now because of all the guys. And Justin mentioned now it could be a good thing. We have so many like new guys and like there's so much chemistry that has not been reached yet and everything. And our offensive line against Chubb and Miller, I know they haven't Miller didn't play last year and all that, but still even Shelby Harris is another guy to worry about. But yeah,
I interviewed Shelby Harris one time, but their corners don't have it. Like all of their corners are brand new.
Yes,
Ronald Darby, he's brand new. Fuller, he's brand new. Surtain, Surtain, he's brand new. All of their corners are brand new too. So it's like, what are they just going to line up in man? I don't think Vic Fangio's going to do that. And I don't want to have to give Pat Shurmur the satisfaction of beating us either.
Yes, that's a big thing. Yeah, even Monte Ball. You guys seen those tweets? Monte Ball's getting torn.
I have stayed away from it, but if we win, I'm just gonna send him a nice tweet from the Talkin Giants account, so it doesn't get traced back to me.
I think everyone should do that. Everyone viewing that, if the Giants win Sunday, go to Monte Ball's Twitter and let him know how you feel.
Good
Justin, good game. I don't like that guy because I said I drafted him once in fantasy, and that guy was a freaking bust. Anyway, so
he might be the biggest running back bust of the last 10 years. He did absolutely nothing.
Even Trent Richardson had that one good rookie year.
Yeah, Monty Ball did absolutely nothing in the NFL.
Justin, why is 7 too low for the Giants as a win total?
Oh, boy. It is because they looked at Andrew Thomas's first half last year and said, well, that's him as a player. And Jason Garrett, he's an accomplished NFL coach, and he comes in here and he's an accomplished coordinator. He's an accomplished play caller, and Daniel Jones still has the fumble issue. So, kind of like the things that Bobby said, that's why. And, I don't blame people for not knowing this football team like the back of their hands, like we do. So 7 wins, it's too low because as Giants fans right now, where we all are Giants fans and analysts are not fans, as Giants fans, 7 wins is too low because it is too low. Because of the expectations that we have, because of this is how many years now of Dave Gettleman, and we put how much money into the players that we have garnered, and enough of the mediocrity. And even 7 wins in retrospect, 7 wins would be 7-9. That's 2. Well, 7. No, not 7. 7-10.
I said 7-11 now. I'm like, what is wrong with my math? And then you made the same mistake. I feel good about myself. Thank you.
There you go. Well, no, math is not my thing. I have the other people do the math, and then I look at it. But, even we're looking at being 3 games below 500, and hey, that's not that bad of a season in years past. But because of the resources, because the Giants decided to have a different approach this offseason than they did last offseason, for being real. I'm sorry, Adoree Jackson and Kenny Golladay are bigger money upgrades than Blake Martinez and James Bradbury. Those were great value guys, but that is a much bigger splash when you go and get those guys versus the value signings that you did last offseason. So the Giants did it. They did it to themselves. Luckily, I'm happy that they did it. But they did it to themselves. They put these expectations on themselves to do it. So that's why 7 is too low, because it is too low.
And I'm very happy we're in that situation because, obviously Dave Gettleman is there's some people who love him, people who hate him. After this year, there should be no argument. If they make the playoffs, he stays. If they don't, he leaves. And obviously there's exceptions. If they win the division at 6-10, like they could have last year, I want him fired. If they don't make the playoffs and they go 11-6, and it's just a really good year for the NFC, there's whatever the word is in there, exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like after this year, there should be no debate about it. He's either fired or he's staying.
Yeah, my thing with Gettleman is like, I don't want to go into a whole thing on this, but like, I think I really liked what Gettleman has done post 2020. Now, I don't know how much is Judge influenced. I'm going to give them both the blame. If Andrew Thomas is a bust and Tony's a bust, I'm giving both guys the blame. That's the way I look at it personally. But I always fear that what Gettleman did in 2018 and 2019 for this team is going to have its effects on this team, because our quarterback was 2019, our second overall pick was 2018, and like even Will Hernandez, a guy like that. How does that affect this team in 2021? It's yet to be seen, but I always fear in the back of my mind, like those might be things that we can't overcome here in 2021, but hopefully we don't have to face that, because we've made a lot of really smart decisions the past couple of years, and I've been proud of our front office. So things are getting better. I'm just afraid that what we did 3-4 years ago is going to kind of screw us over, but hopefully we don't have to face that.
And if it does, then he should be fired. If it doesn't, I know there is always debate of like, I keep it simple so I don't have to like play mental gymnastics. Does the head coach work with the GM? Absolutely. But I give all decisions, like personnel decisions, are on the GM for me. So the decisions that people love, Dave Gettleman. Did he work with Joe Judge? Yeah, a little bit. The decision that people hate, he gets the credit. And you can say, well, John Mayer wanted them to do this. Well, guess what? He was the general manager. Like, unless John Mayer was putting flat out mandates, I'm not saying like recommendations, flat out mandates. All player personnel moves, I give credit and blame the GM.
That's when people say like they blame James Betcher for some of the signings in 2018, 2019. That also pisses me off, because I'm like, dude, it's not literally James Betcher signing the players. They're giving Gettleman advice and suggestions of maybe, hey, this guy might work on my scheme. But Gettleman at the end of the day has to evaluate the player and sign him. Like that's, you know what I mean? So like you can take all the recommendations you want from a coordinator, but you don't have to go through with it. It's not a mandate, as you said. So
yeah, and even besides Pat Shurmur, like look at Pat Shurmur never had any working relationship with Betcher. Mike Shula was brought in as the OC, slash QB.
What did that guy do again? Nothing.
They were good that one year. I probably would rather take Shula than Garrett, but
fair.
That's for sure? That is for another. Yeah, I think I would, honestly. Like, but yeah, I bad moves are Dave Gettleman's fault, and good moves are Dave Gettleman's credit. So I just keep it simple as that.
Mm-hmm. All right, I've had you guys long enough, but just let me know. Do we win Sunday, and give like a 2 to 3 sentence blurb of why you think it's going to happen?
We do win because we have better players this year. We're an ascending team. We have better players, and the Broncos are not a good team. There is not expectations for the Broncos to be a good team. The Giants added weapons. Their offensive line is still shaky, but a bad offensive line shouldn't stop you from scoring points. It should stop you from scoring a ton of points. But we don't need to score a ton of points to beat the Broncos. And our defense is real deal, and it got better, and Patrick Graham is going to get better because he has better weapons, because he's a great coordinator, unlike a lot of coordinators in the league and maybe on the same team. So Giants are going to win, and I feel very confident about it.
Nice. Justin.
I've woken up the last 2 days and I've decided that I'm going to do this. The Giants are going to lose.
Scumbag.
I thought I was the only scumbag here, so I kind of thank you for that, but yeah.
I just don't feel great about the way that the summer went. And, Grant, I was only there for 2 practices. But I take training camp and I take the reports that come out of training camp and take those seriously, because you practice how you play. Something has to matter. And this is where I get really mad at people, where they get mad at practice reports saying, oh, they don't want to show this. They don't want to do that. Something has to matter during the summer. Like, you practice how you play. Coaches preach that all the time. It's not that they're just going to wait till the first Sunday of the season and they're going to, we're going to unwrap everything. It just hasn't been a great summer for the Giants. A lot of things have gone wrong, a lot of injuries. Things haven't been crisp, and I'm not feeling great to start the season.
You and our mutual friend, they'll call him Nicky Snacks. You guys went
Oh,
to Foxborough, correct? To watch them
yes,
practice, and you guys
yes, we
came
did.
away not very pleased, I guess, with what you
Yeah,
saw from the
yeah.
offense.
It was Thursday that was bad, and that was a lot of situational stuff. And then Friday, you felt better.
Okay.
Friday, one of the days that you felt better. They produced an explosive play, and Saquon started to come back a little bit too. So, again, I feel bad saying it. It's just too many things need to go right. And
Right.
that's been the common theme, even though, yes, there are better players, but we're still sitting back at this Giants team and looking at it being like, well, even though we have better players, there's so many things that need to go right and perfect for the Giants to wind up on top in a given situation. And it's unfortunate, but hopefully I'm proven wrong. And hopefully this bad feeling goes away. But I'm going to wake up Sunday morning and I'm going to say that we're going to win. So
That's
that's
usually
what's going
how
to
it
happen.
goes. Yeah. Anyway, so I appreciate you guys giving me more than a half hour I thought we were going to have together. It's probably been an hour by now, but
That's
always good
better that
talking
way.
with you guys. Of course, yeah, I can't. It's not realistically going to be 30 minutes, but anyway, appreciate you guys very much. You guys put in a ton of hard work, and I think you deserve everything you get. So once again, thank you very much, and I'll talk to you guys. No later than the bye week this year. I mean, we'll definitely talk again at some point, but thanks again, guys, and I will talk to you next time.